I'm a huge fan of the horror genre. Movies, books, games, you name it, I'm probably into it. But that's led me to a lot of really strange places. I've read terrible books, I've seen terrible movies, and oh boy, I have played so many bad horror games. Bad horror is a dime a dozen, but that's what makes finding good horror so special. And that's especially true in a gaming world. Good horror games have to balance scares, story, gameplay, and just overall how fun a game is. And where some games fail at one or two or three or hell, all four of those things, some games manage to shine through. And that's what led me to Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight is quite literally a horror fan's wet dream. You can play as horror icons from Ashley Williams all the way to freaking Pyramid Head. I mean, what horror fan wouldn't love to get to be the survivor of their very own horror movie? Or to get to be the killer and to exact revenge for a mysterious entity? That's what makes Dead by Daylight such a special thing. It's pretty much the Super Smash Bros. Of the horror universe. With tons of original characters and horror icons all in one place, what could go wrong? Let's talk about it. Before we begin, if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe for more content like this in the future. Let me know in the comments if there are any games you'd like to see me talk about. Now, let's turn off the lights and get scared. Now don't get me wrong, from the way I hyped up the game in the intro, it sounds like I'm talking about some perfect game. But Dead by Daylight does have its fair share of problems, so don't worry, I will talk about those too. But for now, let's do a little bit of history. Dead by Daylight first released for PC in 2016. It featured unique gameplay based around survivors repairing generators, all while eluding a killer who will do anything to sacrifice them to the Entity, a mysterious force who consumes emotions and devours worlds. Pretty typical horror stuff. The game has since been released on a number of consoles, including PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and the Nintendo Switch. Oh, and who can forget the Stadia? Genuine question, does anyone actually use Stadia? What makes Dead by Daylight so special though is that you can choose which role you play in the game, survivor or killer, and which one you choose gives you a very different perspective on things. As a survivor, your goal is to make your way around the map and repair 5 generators. This requires completing skill checks in order to advance the progress made on them. Once they're complete, you have to make your way to an exit gate, open it, and run out. Seems simple enough, until you remember that there's a killer trying to murder you and put you on a hook. This slows the progress of the game quite a bit, as you now also have to keep track of who's on a hook so you can rescue them and heal them. On the flip side, for the killer it's a 1v4 matchup. You need to hunt down your prey and sacrifice them before they can finish the generators. How this is achieved is up to the killer, but it usually revolves around who they're playing as. Every killer has a unique skill and specialty. For example, one of the most basic killers is the Trapper. As his name implies, he places bear traps around the map, and if a survivor happens to step in one, then their location is revealed and they have to try and escape before the Trapper reaches them and captures them. There's a huge amount of diversity between the different killers, so there's pretty much a playstyle to suit anyone. My first killer was the Legion, who's able to sprint at high speeds and stab victims, wounding them and causing them to start bleeding. The main reason I picked them was because I liked the lore, but they've grown on me even more since. So, if you're someone who wants to pick up a killer, just find one you like and stick with it. There's no right or wrong option, although some will say certain killers are stronger, but in the right hands, any killer can be good. So that's the basic premise of the game. It's pretty much a game of cat and mouse, and both sides have their role to play. It's that simple idea that makes this game so compelling. But there are a lot of other aspects that I really love as well, my personal favorite probably being the game's sound design. The game features a pretty minimal soundtrack, which is actually a good thing. It only uses music when it has to, so instead it focuses on sound effects and ambiance to get across its horror. This is especially noticeable in playing Survivor. In my honest opinion, the scariest sound to date in all of Dead by Daylight is the stomping of the newest killer, Resident Evil's Nemesis. The stomps are so loud and horrifying that the moment you hear them approaching, you really want to get out of there. But there's more to it than just footsteps. There's the heartbeat, a common horror staple, which increases in speed and volume as the killer gets closer. It provides a sense of urgency to every situation. But good sound design isn't just about when sounds are used, it's also about the use of silence. When going against a killer like Michael Myers, or the Shape as he's known in the game, his special ability revolves around him not having a heartbeat for parts of the match. This can make the game extra scary when you just suddenly look up and see him standing there. It also adds to the fun of playing as him because you just know that you are scaring the shit out of some people when they least expect it. The game's soundtrack is really only heard during chase sequences, which just really ramps up the tension, especially as the killer gets closer and closer to you, and finally, there's a sweet release when you get downed and the music goes away. It's all honestly pretty brilliant the way sound is used, especially for me, someone who is literally studying sound design. It's just such a cool use of loud and quiet, and it works absolutely perfectly for the game. But of course, the sound design isn't working by itself. The game also features really smart level design. There are currently 16 maps in the game, covering a whole bunch of different themes. Some are indoors, some are outdoors, and some are a mix of both. But they all share a sort of maze-like quality, which makes them really easy to get lost in. Every map has its common landmarks, such as the killer's shack and usually a central structure of some sort. These are easily recognizable, but as you move away from those, it's easy to get lost in mazes of walls or wheat fields or long winding hallways. To add to that, the generators spawn randomly on the map, so each game can have a different layout, so there's no simple way to just memorize their locations. You have to learn as you go, and doing that while being chased by a killer can make things pretty complicated. But if it was straightforward, it wouldn't be fun for anyone. Now there's one more thing I really want to applaud about this game, and that is the story. You can learn bits and pieces of the game's story through in-game events and some lore fragments, but the best place to go if you really want a deep dive is to go straight to the game's wiki. It features lore for every survivor and killer, as well as info about the maps and the mysterious entity which watches over the game. It's so easy to get lost just reading it for hours and hours, learning all the little tidbits about the various places and characters. But the game isn't entirely perfect, as I mentioned at the start of the video. There are some things which need to be fixed up. One of the game's biggest complaints is that the matchmaking system isn't the best in the world. You can be the lowest ranked survivor and get matched with a first rank killer, or vice versa. It can make the game a bit hard to play at times. I understand how hard it can be to make a matchmaking system which has both fast queue times and balanced matching, but there also should be some sort of limit to how big of a difference there can be between ranks, just for the sake of fairness at least. There's also the fact that certain killers are more used than others. There are some killers I love lore-wise, but they have abilities which aren't very strong and which makes them not fun to play. For me, the biggest example of that is the Clown. He is such a cool killer in concept, but his ability to throw smoke bombs just isn't that good when compared to other killers. I think if a little more time was spent making balances instead of pumping out new characters as quickly as they do, the game would be an all-around more fun experience. Don't get me wrong, I still do have a ton of fun with this game, but those are just some things that might make the game a little bit better. The idea of this sort of asymmetric game has grown a lot over the last 5 or 6 years. There have been plenty of other similar games like Friday the 13th the Game and Evolve and other indie games like In Silence. The genre has a lot to offer, and with Dead by Daylight just reaching its 5th anniversary, I'm really excited to see the game and the community continue to grow. But I'm also really excited to see what other games come around. There are plenty of ideas swimming out there, so I'm sure we'll see more. But for now, I am really happy with Dead by Daylight, and it really is just a dream come true for horror fans. So whether you're new to the genre or a veteran, check out the game and really help support those devs who've worked so hard to make their dream into a reality. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and let me know in the comments if there are any games that you would like to see me talk about in the future. Okay, y'all. Peace out. I'll catch you on the flip side. Pew, pew. Pew, pew. I swear these finger guns get worse every time. Pew, 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 pew.